Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 2015 Global Dialogues on Waste, which are a series of interviews and panels organized every Wednesday from August to December of 2015. Today we have Mrs. Claire Poole with us. She is the Education and Training Manager at CIWM, a very famous and well-positioned organization in the UK. And today she'll talk to us about career opportunities in waste management in the UK. And next week, we have a panel discussion on ocean plastic pollution, and we have some great panelists lined up. So please follow us on social media to know the exact time for next week's panel, and also to know more about the panelists. And if you have any questions or comments for Claire, you can tweet to us at BWasteWise, or you can also use our live chat window on www.wastewise.be. So with that, you know everything about BWasteWise. So let's start our conversation today. Claire, first of all, thank you very much for joining us, for your time, and we're really excited to hear about careers in waste management in the UK, because this topic is not generally talked about a lot. So thank you again.
You're welcome. Thank you for inviting me.
Great. So Claire, can you please introduce yourself and then tell us about what you're doing at CIWM, and what do you think about your work?
Okay, thank you. As you've already introduced, my name is Claire Poole. I'm the Education and Training Manager at CIWM. For those that are not aware, CIWM is the Chartered Institution of Waste Management. We have centres throughout the UK, Ireland, and members throughout various places around the world as well. We are a professional institution, so we are a membership-led organisation. We help our members with their training, education in waste management, networking opportunities. We do research papers. It's also about your professional qualification as well. So it's about becoming a chartered waste manager and having your status and your where you've got to within your career registered and acknowledged by your peers as well. So my role within CIWM is about education training. So I work closely with some of our universities to accredit their courses so that we can help people coming through schools choose qualifications that are relevant to the waste industry. And we also look at developing training courses for absolutely anybody who works with waste. So that could be people working directly in the waste management sector, or people who just produce waste and need to understand how to comply with the legislation, how to manage their waste more responsibly, more sustainably, and make the resources work rather than wasting them. So my role is about looking after CPD, continuing professional development, and developing training courses and looking after the content of our training.
Mm-hmm. So are you responsible for choosing these topics for the training courses and also developing them altogether, or do you work with many others? How does it work?
Well, we work with various people to help bring in various levels of expertise depending on the topic. But choosing what we need to develop, we would obviously look at feedback from what people are asking for, what's new coming online, what's happening in the world of waste, what new legislation is coming on. But we also have a committee made up of some senior members represented from all of our centres who are there to advise and guide us, really. So it's not something I do in isolation by any means.
All right, great, wonderful. So while developing these training courses and the educational material, how much is the focus on what the industry is looking for? And yeah, maybe we could just start with that, and then I'll go on to other questions.
But obviously we've got to develop training that people need, but at the same time training that people want, because sometimes there is a slight difference between what people think they need, what they would be willing to pay for, and also it's about doing things that we can do for free as well to some of our members. So, and we're just starting doing various webinars and things to try and just get various key messages out there to reinforce people's learning. But obviously, yeah, there's no point in developing a course that nobody wants.
Mm-hmm. And great. And in your role as the education and training manager, are there any specific instances when the organization goes, "Oh, we need," there were examples where you kind of fix problems, like crisis or something?
Not so much fix problems, but we react to changes. So, for example, in the UK, there's recently been some updates on how we code and classify hazardous wastes, and this is all stemming from legislation coming from within Europe. And that legislation changed, the guidance was changed by the regulator. So we worked very quickly to ensure we'd updated all of our training materials, put on new and extra courses to enable people to understand what those changes were, because they came in fairly quickly. Mm-hmm. And the guidance, there wasn't a lot of time between the guidance being published and the changes coming into force. So obviously we have to make sure we're capable of providing all that information, all that training in a very timely manner. Otherwise, people will find it more difficult to comply with the regulations.
I agree, and I think that's very important. So how many courses, do you do all of these training in a face-to-face manner, or most of it is online? And how many of these courses do you do per year, and do they change?
Oh, that's a really difficult question, because we deliver an awful lot of our training face-to-face. But the number varies. We have about 20 courses that we do on a scheduled basis. So we would run maybe some of those courses 3 times a year. Others will run once a month. And others, at the moment, the coding and classification courses, we've done quite a lot of this year. But next year we'll slow down because it'll be no longer new. But we also take our training to companies. So we do in-house training. We do bespoke training, so we can tailor what we do to meet a particular company's needs. So instead of having an off-the-shelf course, we can either mix and match something from a variety of courses, or actually develop something that's very specific to their needs. So those courses, it changes month by month as to how many courses we would run. But you could probably say we could run about, I don't know, about 40, 50 training courses a year, maybe more than that. But we're also doing e-learning. Although at the moment, most of our e-learning is it's more aimed at waste producers rather than people within the industry. So it's helping people who produce waste, which is absolutely every company, every organisation, every person in the world, understand the waste hierarchy, how they should treat waste as a resource and not waste it. So we've got various different e-learning packages that can help with that. We also have a training course that we've developed that we allow other people to train. So they pass an assessment, but then they can train it themselves, called Waste Smart, which again is designed for people to access it at very low cost and locally to them. And it's all about moving waste up the hierarchy and understanding the waste hierarchy. So there could be, we've got about 70 trainers that are doing that throughout the UK. So it's very difficult to say what number that is. We're also doing webinars so that we can do online remote access training, very similar to this. And we also deliver training overseas as well.
Great, and I was actually thinking about trying to relate the overseas aspect and then job prospects in the UK, and also the importance of the training. So maybe we can start with this question, which is you say you certify professionals for waste management, and how important is it in their career or in getting jobs for them? Do companies and governments, do they recognize this certificate? And also, is this also useful for international professionals?
Absolutely. The Chartered Waste Manager is something that we're allowed to issue to individuals by Royal Charter. So very similar to becoming a chartered engineer. And you have to demonstrate experience, qualifications, and you have to be peer assessed. So you have to pass an interview, demonstrate your breadth and depth of knowledge, and satisfy certain key criteria. So it is something that you have to obtain through experience. You can't just apply for it. You've got to actually earn it. And it is highly respected because we are the only place that can issue Chartered Waste Manager, and it is formally recognised throughout Europe as a professional qualification. And we do have members overseas in a variety of different countries who actually apply for Chartered Waste Manager status. So I think that actually says it is well respected. It's a measure of your career and where you've got to, so that you can show your customers, your employers, as to how you have achieved, what you've achieved, the level you're working at, because you have to undertake an interview. Those are your peers that are doing it, so experienced people within the industry, and not everybody gets through first time. So it's not something that we give away lightly, but it's a measure of something to attain and something to aim for when you start within the waste management industry.
Mm-hmm.
You can have letters, so you become MCIWM on your business cards, and it's something to show people where you're at within your career.
So it sounds very difficult to get. All right.
It's not if you prepare properly.
All right.
But we do help you through it, but you do have to work for it. It's not something that you can easily just get without putting any thought behind it.
All right, that's a good certification then. All right, next question. So I'm sure you work with a lot of professionals, continuing education, and young professionals. What are the job trends, in the UK in waste management sector? Where are most of the opportunities, and what kind of backgrounds are they looking for?
That's a good question, but it's one that doesn't have a simple answer. The waste industry is so diverse.
You have some time.
Yeah. The waste industry is so diverse. There's opportunities from waste collection, so drivers, people wanting to drive the collection vehicles, people sorting waste, which there's still a lot of manual sorting being done. But then there's also a lot of technology being introduced as well. So there's operators of material facilities which are using very high-tech sorting machines. So, and the thermal treatment, energy from waste, gasification, pyrolysis, it's all very high-tech, and therefore it's opening opportunities not just for people who are collecting waste and manually sorting waste, but it's for people coming in as engineers, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers. So we're getting a lot more people now doing masters in waste management, and looking at much more of the high-tech end. At the same time, there's also a lot of people working in consultancy, looking at helping people to comply, identify what waste technologies they need and how to implement it. So there's something for absolutely everybody in waste management in the UK and everywhere. At whatever level you want to work at, there's education officers. There's an awful lot going on about trying to educate the public in waste prevention, educating them in what's happening if somebody wants to build a facility near to where they live, how that operates, how it complies with the regulations. So education officers, waste prevention people.
So that's communications people.
Absolutely, communications is absolutely key for a successful waste management industry. And so a lot of people are one-man bands, so you can get people collecting waste and running waste facilities that are very small scale. But at the same time, you've got an awful lot of large companies as well. And obviously, once you get into a larger company, they will have many different types of facilities, many different types of opportunities. And then your consultancies that offer advice and guidance. Again, there's small one-person, two-person companies at the same time, there's very large global waste management consultancies where there'll be opportunities to move all around the world.
Mm-hmm.
So because its technology is so diverse, waste management is so diverse.
Right. So
any skills really the waste management industry needs.
Mm-hmm. That's wonderful to hear for a lot of people, I guess. I mean, the more inclusive you are, the better. Mm-hmm. Even here. But okay, so next question is, so what are the main, qualifications that, or let me put it this way. So where are the most number of jobs at for people with a high graduate degree in engineering or other areas? People with a graduate degree.
Okay, I would say three places actually. The waste management companies that are opening your material recovery facilities, your energy from waste plants, your recycling plants, the ones that are dealing with the technology side, and also your consultancies, the ones where they're looking at helping people understand what infrastructure to put in, how to comply with the regulations, but also the regulators. We mustn't forget the regulators in this. The UK has 4 different regulators, all do very similar things in similar ways, and they the legislation's all slightly different in each of the 4 nations, but they all take on very similar people. It's not just people who are graduates. Yes, all of these companies take on a lot of graduates, but there's an awful lot of people working in the waste industry who come in because they have other skills, like the communication skills, which is very important for a regulator, or just an interest in environmental science or the environment. And these people can learn on the job and maybe come back and do qualifications later. Mm-hmm. It's not an industry where you absolutely have to have a degree or a master's, but there's an awful lot of people that do. There's also an awful lot of people that don't, and they do various different types of jobs. They can be very senior managers, and I've been working in the industry for a very long time and be very experienced. And some of those may go on and do qualifications through work and do them in addition to their experience. So it's very difficult to answer with a simple answer, because basically anything goes.
Not a problem. So okay, then so let's move on to the next topic, which is how are the employment opportunities in general in the UK? For us, long back when I was looking at various international destinations for work, UK kind of came off as not so good for international people, but I don't know how it is for people within the UK or UK citizens or European citizens. How are the opportunities for them?
I would say it's improving. I think we went through a difficult situation with the economic crisis, as everybody else did, and the waste industry was hit with that. Reports that's coming out of the government at the moment seems to suggest that things are picking up. And I think a piece of research that was done in 2012 suggested that 40% of the waste management companies were planning to increase their numbers of staff in the following year. So that's fairly significant, and I think things have picked up. There's an awful lot of overseas students in the universities that are doing some of the master's courses in waste management, and I know a lot of those candidates, some may go back to other countries, but some will stay and find jobs following their studies. So I think the opportunities are there, and I think it is generally improving at the moment. The waste industry in the UK, average age is about early to mid 40s. So I would say we need younger people coming in.
All right, great. So so in conclusion, we can say that it is positive, it is improving now, and it's much better for locals, to find opportunities in the space.
I think it depends. It's important to be the right person with the right skill set.
Okay, all right. So yeah, I agree. All right. And do you have any suggestions for people looking for jobs in this sector?
What I would say is get some experience, do some voluntary work if necessary, show that you have the right understanding of
Experience, you mean
legislation.
internship?
If possible, some of the bigger companies might take them. Work experience has always been difficult within the waste industry because of the health and safety nature of the roles, especially for younger people. So that has always been difficult. But the only real way of trying is to contact the bigger companies directly. There isn't a system in place where you could sort of register an interest somewhere and they will match you up with an internship or work experience or something. But the bigger companies, they have graduate recruitment programs. So
no, the reason I asked that question was whenever I talk about early career experience and job opportunities, I remember a meme in which there is a person who goes to an employer and he asks for a job and he says he needs experience, and then back in he's like, I need a job to get experience. So I think that there is that problem. So I just wanted to hear what you thought about it and also continue with the suggestions.
Yeah, it's always tricky, isn't it, in whatever profession you're trying to get into? How do you get the experience without a job? How do you get the job without the experience?
Yeah.
What I would say is any organisations like CIWM can provide networking opportunities. So we provide free student membership. So students can become a member of CIWM throughout the whole of their course. And during that time, they can access local events run by our members, for our members. They can access things like our new member network conferences, and those events and meetings will introduce them to more senior, more experienced people within the industry, maybe open their eyes to parts of the industry they'd not considered before and other opportunities, but also get them access to site visits so they can at least experience the sites and understand how things work. And it's about networking. It's about getting out there, getting on site visits, networking with people, making contacts, and that's the only way to do it.
And
well, it's certainly the better way to do it.
Right. And I think we can't stress enough about the need for networking in job search. I mean, most people do not understand that aspect as yet. But I think what you said was right. I mean, you have to network and you have to reach out to people. I agree. And
it might be that you take a job that's not really your ideal job, but at least it gets you some experience and it will open other doors to you. So you've got to start somewhere. That somewhere may not be where you're ultimately aiming to go. It's unlikely to be where you're ultimately aiming to go. But once you've got a foot in the door and you're getting some experience, then you can move on much, much easier. So be prepared to take something, even if it's not what you're aiming for initially.
Interesting. So I have an interesting idea. So let's try to make a hierarchy of waste opportunities to get into the waste management sector. Then at the top would be the internship that you're looking for. The second would be the internship that you probably are not looking for, or that you weren't expecting. And then below that is any plant visit.
Yeah, but there's also sometimes you can get short-term contracts. So it might be that a local authority is doing a particular campaign in an area for maybe a new piece of legislation or a new piece of infrastructure, new way of working, and they want people to do some education or just some knocking on doors, and it's a very short-term contract, but it's something that can go onto your CV. So it might be paid work, but it might be short-term, but at least it's getting experience.
Interesting. That's interesting. So your suggestion would be get your foot in the door with any volunteer experience, or maybe some work that you were not really, expecting to do in the first place, or with, plant visits or some way, try to get more familiar with the people in the industry and also the work in the industry. That would be a suggestion to them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. All right. And network and then reach out as much as possible. Right.
Yeah, get your CV out there. There's plenty of job sites that will have an environmental sector as part of them. So.
Yeah, and we have very less time, but this actually reminds me of another question, which is, do these sites, do companies actually hire through these sites? Because people generally report a very low response from companies when they go through such sites, hiring sites.
I think if they didn't, I think there's some that specialise. So we've had CIWM jobs on our website before. There's other specialist ones that work within the waste sector. I think if companies will generally have to pay to advertise a job on them. So if they didn't want to take any applicants from them, then I can't see why they would advertise a job on them. I think there's a difference between, there's some job sites where they look for other job adverts on other places, and they just take the information and add it to theirs. So they're not necessarily the employer's first point of call. So I think it's important to get to the right job sites and find the ones that have advertised, but also go direct to the company websites as well, because that's where they're going to be advertised for absolute certain, isn't it? So yeah.
Interesting. And CIWM does have a job portal.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Great. Wonderful. And I think we're almost, towards the end of the time. So do you have any other suggestions or final thoughts before we leave?
No, only to say that the waste management industry is really interesting. People tend to either come, try it and go, or stay for a very, very long time, because it's always changing. There's always a challenge. The legislation makes life very interesting. And if you talk to a lot of people that's been in for 20, 15, 20 years, they all say the same thing. They couldn't imagine doing anything else because it is so varied. There's loads of different opportunities. I've been in the waste industry for 25 years, started as a waste regulator. People are now coming into it more by thought than just accidentally falling into it, like I did. But people do tend to get hooked, and they do stay because it's always changing. You won't get bored. Absolutely, you won't get bored.
And I think that's one thing I observed. People were definitely entering it as an accident, and then they never leave once they get into the industry. It happened similarly with me. And I was actually, I keep telling people that I was seduced into working on garbage by an old man at Columbia University. So that's how it happened for me. And then later on, I just, stayed working in the waste industry. But
and now you can't think of doing anything else.
Yeah, exactly. It's extremely complex and far-ranging, and you can do a lot of good work. And also, any work with much larger impact than other industries, which are much more developing phase. This industry. And so maybe we can end with saying, once a waste manager, always a waste manager.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, great, wonderful. Thank you very much, Claire, for joining us, and to the audience, thank you very much for joining us today. And if you're watching this, if you're watching the recording of this panel, you can go to our archives page, and you'll find recordings of all the previous panels that we've organized. So thank you again, and thank you, Claire.
Thank you.
All right, bye.